welcome to Abracadoodle Weekly Challenge. This week we're going to be learning about a very famous artist by the name of Vincent van Gogh. Here he is. Vincent van Gogh, or sometimes people like to say Vincent van Gogh or Van Gogh. He was a Dutch artist, so he lived in the Netherlands and he lived between the years 1853 to 1890. He became more well known after he passed away, and he has some very famous paintings. Here are some examples. Now, Van Gogh actually painted over 900 paintings in his lifetime, and he also painted lots of self-portraits like this. So this is a painting of himself, and he also painted some beautiful sunflowers, which he was also very well known for. Let's have a look at the painting we're going to focus on today. One of his most famous paintings, which was painted in the year 1889, was Starry Night. Can you see the stars? They look a little bit different, don't they? They're twinkling. They look like, almost like circles, almost like they're glowing. And we also have the crescent-shaped moon here, a big tall cypress tree, and some buildings down below. In the sky, we see these beautiful big spirals and swirls. They show lots of movement. And if you look closely at the detail here, you can see the way Van Gogh would paint with lots of little short dashes of colour. And this was what we call post-impressionism. That was the style that he painted with. So it was more of an impression of what he saw. Now today we're going to be trying to create our own starry night sky. Perhaps you can add lots of stars grouped together in your sky, and this is called a constellation. Also, we're going to be adding our own city down the bottom. It might be black like this. You can see the basic shapes of the city, some tall, some short. And you might think about other colours that you can add to your night sky. We can perhaps try out some different techniques, some different tools to make our constellations in the sky. You can see here this speckle effect with white paint. You might even try some cotton buds. You might have them lying around at home and use them to dot your stars. You can use lots of different materials for this particular artwork this week. And here are just some examples of the kind of thing you could create this week. So you might try either a painting, or you might try and use oil pastels. You might even use collage, where you cut out pictures from magazines of a city. You could also cut out paper shapes. This one actually is probably the easiest for many of us to do, and you can also add a moon, try some different dashes. You can see lots of different examples of starry night skies inspired by Vincent van Gogh, and our city below that we can add to our artwork. All right, I think we're ready to start having a look at the materials we will need this week. Now let me introduce to you the materials we'll be needing for our Vincent van Gogh topic this week. So, of course, we're going to need some white paper to work on for our background surface. And if you choose to do painting, you might try some acrylic paints. You can mix as many colours as you need. Of course, a paintbrush will be handy. And you can even try using, as we mentioned earlier, some cotton buds for dipping into your white paint to create stars. You also, if you don't have acrylic paint, watercolour is perfectly fine, and you'll be needing some water to wash your brushes. Now, if you choose to do drawing, crayons are good. Also, the best thing that I reckon that we can use for this particular week are oil pastels. They're really nice and thick and bright colours, and they're great for doing those dashes and lines. Now, if you're going to be cutting out and sticking on your city, you can use coloured paper. You might want to cut out some yellow windows or some black for those city buildings. If you're lucky enough, you might even find a picture of a city in a magazine, and you can cut out separate buildings to stick onto your artwork. Of course, we'll be needing our glue stick for sticking anything down, And for a little bit of added sparkle, if you've got some glitter glue or some glitter at home, you can also add that on for your stars. All right, I think we're ready to begin. Now, to make the city part of our artwork, you can see I've already made something here with some black paper and some pieces of yellow paper which I have cut out. So to show you the kind of thing we can do, let's make sure that the piece of black paper or purple paper, something dark is really good, is as wide as the piece of background white paper that we're going to use. Now, what we're going to decide on is what kinds of shapes we can make our city. Now, I know we've been practicing our cutting before, so this is a really good cutting activity where we place our scissors as high or low down as we like along the short edge of our paper, and we can make a snip going in, then we can turn our paper going one direction, make another snip, and it's up to you how long or short you want these to go. So we're making a zigzag kind of a pattern. Then we can go lengthways again, then we might turn it up. So you can see I'm going to make a tall building. Now I can completely cut that off if I like. If I want to make another cut going in this way, you can see I can make a tall building. Then I'm going to make a little snip this way and then go back up again for another tall building. Now let's try and make some different heights with our buildings when we're cutting. You might think of the city Sydney. Perhaps you can make pointy buildings like this, or you might make curvy buildings. You might even make something that looks like the Sydney Opera House, where you can cut some shapes like this. They look a little bit curved, a bit like waves. So we go up and down, and we can turn our piece of paper with one hand while cutting with the other. Remember, when we're making curved shapes, it's good to try and make little cuts. Now, if you want to make straight cuts, you can cut pieces off as much as you like. And I'm going to make another building straight across there, maybe a little bit that way and cut a little bit off there. So now, moving that out of the way, you can see I have my city skyline with some tall and some pointy and some shorter buildings and even some interesting curved shapes, a bit like the Sydney Opera House. Now I've done that, I'm going to use my yellow paper and make some tiny windows. Now, if you would prefer to paint your windows on, you can, or draw them, but simply by cutting out little rectangles and squares like this, and then putting some glue on the back of your pieces of paper, you can decide on where you would like to glue them. You might glue some on going in rows. As you can see, I've done here, I've done some squares and rectangles, I've done some long ones on this one here, and it's up to you where you place them, and you can put as many windows and lights in your buildings as you like. Remember as well, if you have those magazine images, you can cut around that and get inspiration by sticking some more overlapping buildings to your skyline. Now let's get ready to make our sky. Now I'm going to create my starry night sky, but before I do, I'm going to add my moon. Now I have cut out a crescent shape from some yellow paper, and I'm going to think about where I want to place it. I might place my crescent moon somewhere like that, up high in the sky. Then I'm going to use my oil pastels to show you how we can add some stars. So I'm going to start by adding some little yellow circles for some stars like this. Let's just randomly place them throughout our sky, especially concentrating towards the upper side, the top of our piece of paper, because we're going to be placing our city down here. Now that I've put, you can probably put about 10 or as many as you like. some yellow circles or dots for our stars. Then I'm going to use some yellow to put some dashes, and I'm going to dash around like that around my circles that I have made, a bit like the way Van Gogh would paint with those little lines and dashes. And you can do as many as you like. You can really make those stars glow and stand out. You can even do that around the moon, and you can also add another colour. I like to use orange as well. Van Gogh loved to use orange, so we can continue to go around those stars with dashes. Now, if you want to, you can even overlap the yellow and the orange. You can start building up those colours as much as you like until you don't see much white left on the paper. The only little bit of white that we really need is maybe a bit around those stars. So eventually, our whole night sky is going to be filled up with dashes and swirls. Now, when you have gone around each of your stars, I'm only going to go around a few just to show you, like that. Then you can also start adding some of those sky colours. So maybe adding some blue. Now this is when it starts to get really interesting. You can now start to go back and around those stars, a bit like a snail or a spiral. And you can make some bigger dashes, you can make some smaller dashes, you can overlap and go around, maybe come back and around this one, and you can see how I'm kind of curling around one direction and then going back around in another direction. And I can follow those dashes and those lines and overlap and dash, and I can go around my moon and keep dashing until we've got some really interesting movement in our night sky and swirls. And remember, you can go back and forth. You can add more yellow, you can add more orange. You might even start to go in with a little bit of purple into your sky. That looks beautiful. And you can see how I'm slowly building up those dashes and those lines with my oil pastels and swirling and dashing around all my stars. Now you can do that until you fill up your entire piece of paper, and then you can imagine I have filled that up. Then we'll be ready to glue on, putting plenty of glue down the bottom and glue on your city, ready to display and frame. Away you go everyone, and have fun. So now you can see I have glued everything together and finished off my beautiful starry night sky with a city. And just to show you a few little things you might want to consider, you can see with my oil pastels I've also used some white just to help blend some of those colours together. You can go as far as you like. You might even draw over the top of some coloured paper and fill in as many of those white spaces as you like. And also don't forget lots and lots of stars before you frame your artwork. Now if you prefer to try painting, don't forget, use the paintbrush in the same way that we showed you with the oil pastel. Starting out with those stars, you can dot your page with some white or some yellow, and then wash your brush between your colours, slowly adding some little lines or dashes as you go around each star, starting out with your lightest colour like your yellow, then adding some orange dashes. Wash your brush before painting the sky because you don't want to mix blue and yellow together, otherwise you'll end up with a green sky. So you can fill up and go around with lots of swirling and dashing brush strokes. And remember those spiral actions that I showed you with the oil pastel. If you like to dot with a cotton bud, that's a really good way of adding stars. And of course, don't forget you can end up sprinkling on some glitter or adding some glitter glue as well. All right, everyone, I hope you enjoy making your starry night sky with a city. So for this week's call for action for our Vincent van Gogh Starry Night is to send us a 1-minute video clip with your finished artwork. So kids, don't forget to practice those public speaking skills and hold up your beautiful artwork so that our cameras can see you. And parents, let's encourage our kids to answer any of the following questions. Only needs to go for 1 minute, so any of those following questions are fine. If you'd like to prompt them, you can ask them, can you tell us about the artist who inspired you? And what materials and techniques did you use today? Also, what colours, shapes or lines did you use in your artwork? Remember those movements you made? And also, what did you enjoy about making that artwork? Perhaps you found something tricky that you'd like to speak about. And also, you can, if you enjoyed making that artwork this week, you can try making another one. But this time, let's try using different materials and techniques. So if you used oil pastels in your first one, perhaps you could try a painting with your second one and practice those similar movements with your brush strokes, or you might try a collage if you did a drawing the first time. So let's try something different. Take a photo, send it to us. Don't forget, please post those photos and those videos of your artworks to our Facebook or Instagram page to enter our lucky draw. And make sure to use the hashtag Abracadoodle Australia and hashtag Splatdoodle. I look forward to seeing all your amazing artworks, everyone. All right, have a great week and we'll see you soon.